This conference will now be recorded.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order. I see Robert, I see Gail, I see Diane, and I see Devin. Is there anybody else out there that I can't see?
That's it.
No. Okay, then that takes care of our introductions. Did everybody have a chance to review the meeting summary? And do you have any comments? So I did have one, and that was on the last page of the minutes. It says follow up a list of historic resource and cultural resource policies specific to Clatsop Plains Community Plan is attached to this meeting summary. And can you direct me to that? Because I just couldn't find it. I know that I'm just blind about it.
No, it's more than likely I forgot to attach it, so I'll email that out to you.
Okay, no problem. I just thought maybe I was going blind or something. Anything else? Okay, moving on. This says public comment and input, but we have no public, so we'll move on to the county-owned properties map.
Okay,
and I'm opening this up to comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so staff had emailed a link out about 2 months ago now. At the request of Mr. Strickland, we had put together a map that showed the county-owned properties along with the soil map. And I know that Commissioner Strickland had, or sorry, not Commissioner, whoever you are, Mr. Strickland had requested that the committee start going through those parcel by parcel to identify ones that would be worthy of retention by the county to use as either mitigation sites or habitat sites. So that's the overview behind that.
Thank you. So our assignment from last month was that we would all look at this map and bring to this meeting any sites that we wanted to comment on. And I'm opening that up right now. Hearing none, it sounds like we discussed everything that we needed to discuss last time or wanted to. We can come back to that if you want, but moving on, just whipping along here. Review of Goal 5 topics, groundwater resources. I hope everybody had a chance to look through that. For those of you who missed it, Gail had a great recommendation that rather than going through them one by one, that we would, in the interest of looking forward to the future, rather than focusing on the past, that we would bring forth the issues or the policies that we wanted to discuss, and then for the remainder that we didn't need to discuss, just say that that those are fine. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping everybody had a chance. We'll start with table 1, groundwater resources, existing policies. Yep, there it is on the screen. So with that in mind, because I thought we were going through these one at a time, so I didn't actually mark these. So I'm giving you all a couple minutes here to look through the policies on table 1. And then we can discuss any of the ones that you want to discuss.
I just have thoughts on the first one there, just related to the concept of maximum use. You know,
benefit. Go ahead.
Maximum beneficial use is what I'm saying.
Right.
And did you have a change to that, Robert, or?
Yeah, I thought we were figuring out which ones we're going to bother with. It just, it seems like non-utilization is one of the better, is a positive use. In other words, not, it seems like not using a resource is a valid concept. So, maximum use is just a different orientation.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying here. Any other comments about this, about what Robert's brought up?
That's very existential. I think we could include in the list, just leave it alone, the list all on the recommended changes, to just leave it alone as one of the beneficial uses. There must be an artful way of saying leave it alone, but
How about something along the lines, although I'm not sure that we can put this in our policy, but something along the lines of maintain resources for unforeseen potential uses. That's very rough.
I don't think that's what Robert is saying either.
Yeah, you're just, but it's partly, leaving it available.
So,
don't muck.
mhm.
Yes, we can always recycle, and drink filtered urine, but that's not what Diane wants.
Am I alone here?
So what I'm hearing you say, Robert, is this is a good list, the staff recommendation to retain the policy. First of all, we know that we want to do that. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then staff goes on to say Oregon DEQ identifies beneficial uses as. I'm not sure that we in this plan have the ability to modify that list. Is that correct, Gail?
So the list isn't referenced in our comprehensive plan of what defines beneficial use. I put it in there just because I figured the question would be coming, well, what's maximum beneficial use? How is it defined? So I pulled the definition from DEQ. I think we could certainly incorporate their definition and add Robert's suggestion. I'm Googling a synonym, but I'm not finding the one I want, but non-use for right now.
Could we just leave DEQ out of this?
We can.
Recommendation, because I don't, it doesn't matter that it's their definition, it's the definition that the Planning Commission would adopt.
So what I'm hearing is that our recommendation is to include this list under policy 1, including Robert's recommendation addition.
Right.
So Gail, do you need any more time for this or shall we move on?
Nope, I am done.
Okay. So moving on to policy 4, Staff recommendation is to move this to goal 1617. And the policy is the county encourages the development of community dock facilities rather than individual piers or docks. I would agree with that because this is groundwater and you don't put docks on groundwater. So I would agree with that recommendation. What are you guys, what's your thoughts?
Did we
Yep.
skip 2 and 3?
Yeah, we're not going through them one at a time. If there's one you want up, do so.
Okay. So sorry for the interruption.
No, that's good. We want to be clear. So are we in agreement that policy 4 can be moved to goal 1617 in the Clatsop Plains Community Plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and moving on a little bit more. Under water resources policies, goal 6, policy 1, staff comment, sub policy C and E, but I don't see an E, are not applicable to groundwater resources. And I only see A, B, and C.
And D's on the next page, but C and E are gone.
Yeah, I did not include them, but if you give me a second, I can pull them up. I think one dealt with transportation, and I forget what the other one dealt with, but they were not anything related to groundwater. So C is cooperating with the state highway department to provide an efficient transportation system. And E had to do with resource recovery mechanisms such as recycling centers and wood waste.
Okay, thank you. Guess I could have gone deeper into the document and found those myself, but I'm using your shortcuts. Thank you. I would agree with staff recommendations on that. Any other comments on it?
No.
Gotcha. I was catching up with where we are here.
We're on water resources policies, goal 6, policy 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the staff comment is sub policies C and E, which Gail just read, are not applicable to groundwater resources, and I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So our recommendation is then to delete those, or Gail, do they go someplace else?
So these are coming out of water resources. I would recommend moving C and E, actually. I think I would move C to goal 12, which deals with transportation improvements. And then the policy E, I think, could go either into goal 6, which deals with air and water. Well, it is in goal 6, but make it a separate policy, or possibly public facilities, that goal.
Okay. Are we in favor of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love seeing the word indigenous there as a descriptor of under policy D.
That was a word of choice from 40 years ago. So.
Did we have any indigenes 40 years ago, Gail?
Did we have any what last year or 40 years ago?
Indigene 40 years ago.
I don't know. I was not here.
So moving on to policy 2, staff recommends, and I'll wait for Gail to catch up with us there. Yep. There we are. Policy 2. Staff recommendation is to delete the policy as this data is collected and maintained by state agencies and readily available via the internet. Does anybody have any comments on that? I had one comment, and that is, I understand that this information is available. So I'd like to see this reworded that the county planning department, well, still shall work with the DEQ to monitor and keep its environmental. So the county no longer needs to maintain its environmental database. However, go
So
ahead.
environmental health, which has taken over the septic program from DEQ, does, I don't know if they collect groundwater quality data, but they do keep track of septic systems, repairs, maintenance, evaluations, and information I know is shared with DEQ. But the county planning department, which used to hold the on-site program, doesn't hold it anymore. It's been transferred over to public health and has been for several years. So if you want to keep it, and I don't think that public health is doing any air quality or surface water monitoring.
So
So
No, I'd like to pull up an extraneous thought here that it seems to me roughly 3 years ago, it became a contentious issue about training kids at a Clatsop Community College lab to do first-rate water quality testing. You know, it was something that was squelched, but it came up as, gee, this is something that some people thought ought to be done, and it would be a good educational experience. But it was one of those things where my recollection is it was killed. And it may be that Tessa Scheller would recall something about that gathering of data about water quality in the county and how it happened to be killed before it got a foothold. So I'm just suggesting that anyone with a red sweater, not a t-shirt, but a red sweater, might ask Tessa for her remembrance of that process being killed off.
So can I ask a question in assistance of answering Robert's concern? Does this policy only address the database and not the monitoring or the testing, but the keeping of a database?
well, it's a little vague as I read it, because it seems to me that if the county planning department were to work with the department to monitor and keep its database updated, that there would be some role that the county would be playing, the county planning department would play in
Right.
monitoring those items. And we don't do that.
We could say we like the concept of these data points being well collected, you know, just as part of the broader planning function, you know, that kind of good clean water, scientifically shown to be what it is, seems within the purview of red sweatered people.
So red sweatered person, do you see the county ever participating in these monitoring activities?
I see them as not necessarily going out and doing the gathering, but certainly wanting it to be done, you know, so that we can make intelligent choices. Just for instance, like what's the saturation point of human populations on over the groundwater on Clatsop Plains?
I think we exceeded it if I look at my lake.
I guess my concern in bringing this up is that I'm not sure that the policy should be deleted. It does need to be reworked in terms of, I want to, in the comprehensive plan, to maintain this focus, whether it comes from the state or whether it's something that we do locally, which we may not have funding for, I want to make sure that in the county plan that this focus is not lost.
Right.
This was an example of funding likely may have been available, whether it was from the Watershed Enhancement Board or elsewhere, but it was something that, for reasons I don't recall, was smashed, squished.
So a proposed wording on the policy, and I'm looking for input on this, is something like the county shall work with the state, insert correct department or not, to stay current on information on air quality, surface, groundwater quality, and land quality, including waste disposal and erosion problems, just to keep that focus in the comprehensive plan.
I'm concerned about tying ourselves to DEQ because they have their own set of obstacles to functionality. So yes, they obviously should show an interest, but I think over time they have had plenty to say about being understaffed. Gee, we can't have an office in the area. So I'd rather that we aren't tying our
State. Yeah.
thinking to those of any remnant of DEQ that raises its head in the county.
So you're just suggesting we don't include work with the state. You're just suggesting take
Something on that order, Diane. Yes. Don't tie ourselves to, hey, we cannot be functional without
right.
a functional DEQ.
So would it say something like the county shall work with the Department of Environmental Quality or maintain its own database of information on air quality, surface and groundwater, so on and so on?
Well,
Because that leaves it open, because if we don't have funding either to do this, it's better that we have some basis. I want to maintain this focus in the comprehensive plan that we need to look at these things in a quantitative manner.
right. So we don't need to keep a database.
I don't know that we gain anything by tying ourselves to a weekly functioning state agency.
I hear what you're saying, Robert, and I agree with you. However, I guess looking to the future, I would rather, because we're leaving it open, whether it's county or state, I would rather have some information, even if it's from a weak agency, than have nothing. As we've seen in the plan, there were lots of good ideas that just didn't happen because we lacked the funding to follow through on it. So by tying it to the state or our own locally maintained information, at least we know that we'll have something. And it's mainly the focus of the comprehensive plan that I'm looking for. In other words, whether it's the state or local, I would like to see this in the comprehensive plan that it's a point that they need to that we need to look at and not just have it get lost in the shuffle. That's what
we're supportive of a scientifically well-founded data set, and as to the who is doing that, I don't care. You know, I would have been perfectly happy to have these educated 19-year-olds doing a superlative job of it than someone who's saying, oh, our budget doesn't allow for this, sorry.
Gail, when you say that this data is collected and maintained by state agencies and readily available, are you saying that that monitoring is taking place by state agencies?
Yeah, so for example, groundwater monitoring, there's monitoring wells set up in the county. The data and the reports are available on Oregon DEQ's website, which is where I pulled a lot of information from. I can pull up the page for you if you want, but it's there. And the county, at least the county planning department, does not provide like an annual report to the state saying, here's our groundwater quality, here's the test we did, the dates they were conducted, the locations, here's the chemicals that we found, or the whatever we might find. So we're not collecting that data as a county entity. And so the concern I have is if we want to rework it, I think that's fine. But I think we're not technically set up. It's even beyond funding. I mean, the planning department does not have the staff who has the knowledge or the training to go out and conduct these monitoring sessions.
Were these DEQ sites things like monitoring the Chevron gas station in Seaside? You know, I know they put a few little wells like that. I've not been aware of them going out and sampling water in the Carnahan ditch. You know, since they got rid and they did the sewerage program for Colby Lake. I'm not aware of ongoing, you know, checking the waters of Neocoxie Lake. I just haven't. The only things I've ever heard are the test wells next to a gas station, stuff like that.
Okay. And I don't know if there is a state department that does I'm sure there must be. Maybe Water Resources Department does surface water monitoring and items. If you want the county to take on this work, then what I would suggest is that your policy be reworded to say that the county should create a separate department that does nothing but monitoring of air and water quality. Because I will be very frank, it's not something the planning department can take on, or public works, or the parks department. It would have to be a brand new department within the county.
Right.
I am off track in if I've implied that I thought that planning should administer any of this, but it seemed like it's elemental to planning's work that, you know, we are supportive of water monitoring being done.
Okay.
Not trying to have an extra desk on the south end of your office, Gail.
And see, my concern is, I think that's a great idea, Robert, but I don't want to limit it so that to the county. I think that we need to say either or, so that if the state is no longer able to continue this monitoring, it states in the comprehensive plan that then the county will assume those duties. However, rather than duplicate what the state is already doing, I think that should be our first go-to, simply in terms of saving taxpayer dollars and not duplicating what's already being done. That's my thought.
You look blank, Diane.
Well, I'm thinking that we're on the kind of wrong I mean, these will all come together pretty soon here, all of these random thoughts. But what I think I'm hearing is this policy is not going to happen. Gail has already said this, the way it's written isn't going to happen, and that's her recommendation to delete it because it didn't ever happen and it's not going to happen. And the only way it can happen, which still won't happen, is if we say we should develop a program for monitoring the air, water, and et cetera.
So you're suggesting deleting policy 2?
What?
You're suggesting deleting policy 2?
Well, I don't think that a policy that isn't going to happen should stay in the policy, even though what we want the county to be aware that the ground and surface water and air quality need to be monitored. So we, that probably finds itself in others of the policies in this. I mean, that language is probably not suggesting something that we can't do, but something that we can do elsewhere in the policy. So I think deleting.
Staff recommendation.
I'm sorry.
I support the staff recommendation.
Yes, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. It's just take it out because it isn't relevant, and the information that we want from it is otherwise available.
Or not.
Or not, yeah, or not, but it isn't gonna
change anything.
The availability of it doesn't determine whether or not this policy is going to be implemented, because we've already been told that it isn't going to be implemented.
Okay, well, I just wanted to bring that up. I think that was a great discussion. It sounds like we're in favor of the staff recommendation on this. So if there are no further comments on policy 2, is there another one that we want to discuss?
Another policy?
In table 1. Or if we're okay with the staff recommendations on the remaining policies.
So on policy 9, do we weigh in at all on the issuance of water rights? Do we have any role to play in the issuance of water rights?
We do not.
So that could go too. I agree with that.
The strange person who does is the water master, who can declare something being the natural level of a lake without any scientific basis for the declaration. But they are granted great power of whatever they declare is word.
That's interesting. So I'm looking on the next page. I don't have a page number under high groundwater and or compressible soils policies, goal 7, policy 2. Am I getting ahead of us, Gail? Is this where we're supposed to be discussing?
Yep. Okay, so goal 7, policy 2 has to do with winter water check. And I did talk to the public health director about this and put his comment in there. That's his comment, actually, not planning's. So based on his comment, we have recommended removing the policy.
Good.
Okay.
You can usually tell just from looking at the dirt if it has been seasonally wet. You don't have to wait till winter months to go do something when you're looking at high groundwater areas.
Well, moving on again to the last page where it says recommended action 1. And the last sentence under staff comments is recommend moving policy to the Clatsop Plains Community Plan. So that's not already in the Clatsop Plains Community Plan?
It might already be in there as well. I can't remember. I think it is.
Okay.
So it's in both places, but when I was typing these up, I hadn't gotten to the community plan yet, so I didn't go back and note the duplication.
Well, Gail, the amount of work that you put into this is phenomenal, and thank you so much for providing all this information.
You're welcome. It was a learning experience, and Robert, to his credit, helped me a lot. I emailed him a lot of questions, and he did a lot of background digging for me, so thank you.
What does desiccation mean? Over on recommended action 1. That was not in my vocabulary. Desiccation.
I believe it means drying up.
Exactly.
Ah.
Okay. So if there are no other changes or discussion on the goals or policies in table 1, could we have a vote then to just approve the rest as recommended by staff?
I so propose. All those in favor, raise your hand. And I understand from the list that Dawn is here as well. Are you here, Dawn?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so are you, I can't see you for some reason, so did you raise your hand?
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
I'm afraid my little iPad is not up to that.
Scroll right, I think.
Look, it's his right hand.
Scroll right.
I can't scroll.
Oh,
It's not going. It's not moving.
He's there.
Sorry.
Diane will attest that he raised his right hand.
Okay, good. Thank you.
there he is. Yeah, he comes and goes.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't see him. What?
You can't make your.
No, nope, you guys are frozen. I see Julia. Well, the top of her head anyway. Okay, moving on to table 2. Let's follow the same format. Please go through and see if there are any of the policies that we want to discuss.
Is this appearing in front of us almost?
Can you scroll? How do I scroll? Oh, there it is.
So we still don't know if Camp Rylea has done what they said they were going to do on policy B.
You're asking Gail?
Yeah, I don't have any more information on that. I did send an email and to the person who is supposed to be on our committee and have not had a response from him. So.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen crops growing out there, but.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think they did it.
somebody is generating a lot of static and feedback.
You. Me. Still?
No, that's much better. Thank you.
Still you. You're still muted. You're not unmuted.
I'm not muted.
You are muted. Yep. You're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
So I guess the only one that I want to comment on that wasn't unclear to me, and I read it several times, is policy A.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that, Gail, on the staff comment recommendation?
Okay, so you're talking about the post 208 water quality study policies, that one, Mary?
I'm talking about,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely, policy A.
Okay, so I had to dig through Robert's mental file cabinet to see what this was all about. But apparently at some point there was a study that was done. The 208 water quality is a study that I think it was DEQ. Correct me, Robert, if I'm wrong, but I think DEQ came in and did a study of the groundwater, Clatsop Plains area.
Yeah, they may have been a federal because it seemed like it was nationwide. You know, it's section 208 of environmental protection.
Hold on just a minute. Dawn, is it possible for you to mute? We're getting a lot of background noise.
He is muted.
What is that noise from?
I
Because
just muted
he
him.
wasn't muted.
Oh, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Robert. I was having trouble.
I'm being repetitive. I think this was EPA, Environmental Protection Act, nationwide, section 208, that either authorized or directed studies done all over. You know, so you see section 208 studies across the nation. You know, so it was something that was basic to the 1970s and was not peculiar to Clatsop Plains.
Okay.
Can you define what the on-site wastewater disposal areas are? I mean, what's that referring to, on-site wastewater disposal, which has been shown?
On Camp Riley?
Well, this
So
one,
is that, this just says Clatsop Plains Aquifer, but I don't know what the on-site wastewater disposal, is that only referring to Camp Riley?
so I couldn't find a copy of the study, but the impression I got based on the policies here is that it covered more than just Camp Riley, because there's talk about the Warrenton landfill and other areas. So it covered more than just Camp Riley. Policy B was specific to Camp Riley.
Right.
So,
But what's the on-site wastewater disposal that's been shown to be a significant benefit? What is that referring to? What's the on-site wastewater disposal?
that would be septic. At least that's how I
Septic?
took it, was septic systems.
So,
Camp Riley did create something out there.
well, yeah, I think they had a sewer, because I think at some point Smith Lake thought we were gonna hook up to, doesn't Camp Riley have its own sewer? I mean, that's where they were gonna get the spray to make the agricultural.
Mhm.
But the rest of Clatsop Plains has an entirely different wastewater disposal process. I'm on a septic tank. I don't have a sewer. But I don't know what the benefit of how it's a benefit to the aquifer, since it seems like that's what feeds the lilies and the duckweed. So I just don't understand what, huh? I don't understand what this would.
I think it was an improvement over not having septic systems.
You mean just having cesspools along the?
Well, back in the day.
So the point of the policy, though, was that there had been a study that had been done. The study looked at the use of whatever treatment system they were looking at, and that at some point in time, there had been a moratorium in the Clatsop Plains area that has since been lifted. So
Right.
this refers to lifting a moratorium that's already been lifted. So that's why staff has recommended deleting the policy, because it's done, it's completed, it doesn't apply anymore.
Yes,
Right, although there is a minimum acreage, I think, that still
but
applies.
it's not a moratorium.
It's not a moratorium, unfortunately. Yeah, I remember when the moratorium was in place and no building for the first almost 20 years after I moved here. But that didn't last long enough to save the lake. Anyway, onward. I agree, get rid of it.
I agree.
Doesn't make any sense.
And we know good and well that Camp Elliott does not have a crop to absorb waste.
That's correct, but what we don't know is whether or not, yeah, we don't know whether or not they have
There's no
a
way to tell.
sewer system. Or if they have a septic system or a sewer system, but that doesn't really matter.
But I agree with staff recommendations on maintaining it. So
If they have it, we delete it. If they don't have it, we keep it up. Right?
yep, I agree with that.
No, me too.
So moving on to policy H, as in horse. Staff recommendations is removing sub-policies A and B and retaining C and D. And they're actually numbers, but I'm assuming that they correspond.
Yeah, I think I misnumbered that, sorry.
Not a big deal.
So get rid of 1 and 2 and keep 3 and 4.
And can you tell me the reasoning behind that, Gail?
Well, the reasoning to delete A is that we did create this aquifer overlay, and that's what's shown in the map over here in the green color.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's done. So that's why we recommended deleting that. And then the recharge area, or the aquifer overlay, also covers that Camp Rylea area. So the one thing I did not check on was whether or not there was an agreement with Department of Military.
So I'm wondering if that might not be important moving forward, because the Department of Military would have more authority over Camp Rylea to urge them to follow this policy.
Okay.
The county largely has granted the confused combination of Department of Defense and Oregon Military Department the right to do anything they damn well please, so long as the war on terror continues. And this was kind of by secret contract between the county and Oregon Military Department prior to doing their study of making the overlay zone. Yeah.
But I think it's important for the future comprehensive plan that there is an agreement with a higher authority over Camp Rylea to develop, to preserve the necessary recharge area. Since we don't have authorization or jurisdiction over that, then I would think it would be beneficial looking to the future that at least we're striving towards developing an agreement with the Oregon Department of Military, bringing it to their attention that this is important to us and that we do want to preserve the necessary recharge area. So my thoughts.
So are you talking about keeping B?
I'm talking about keeping 2, actually. I'm not sure about the within 6 months. I don't know if that's doable, but I don't want to leave it open-ended either. Any recommendations, Gail?
Yeah, I would recommend, if we have not completed the agreement, that we should definitely keep it. I would take out the 6 months. I would maybe give it a longer time frame, maybe within a year.
I was thinking 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
Under policy H, paragraph A, change Ray to Ray next to the last word before beach.
Oh, yes. Well, but that's done, and so we're deleting that.
Okay.
And do we know when this agreement, when this policy was established?
It was, I think, I think it was sometime after the initial adoption of the plan, but I'm not 100% certain. But I think it was sometime in the early 80s.
So the 40 years that they've had hasn't been enough to get that agreement.
Well, we don't know. I don't know if there's an agreement or not. So I forgot to look to verify that. So I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. But we do. I mean, if we're going to do it, we should do it, and it shouldn't take. I don't know. I think if we're going to do it, 6 months is plenty of time. Otherwise, it's just going to have the same, result, which is we're not going to have an agreement with Camp Rylea. But I have a personal stake in Camp Rylea stepping up, which they don't do.
Are you an irritable neighbor?
Oh man, I am the best neighbor. They are the irritable neighbor. I am a good neighbor.
So what I'm hearing, Diane, is that you say that you're suggesting that we leave 6 months in and within 6 months.
I'm suggesting that we find out whether or not that agreement was ever developed. And if it wasn't, that we should step on it. And, 6 months or 2 years it doesn't, if Gail thinks that 2 years is more reasonable.
Has enough rank to do it all by himself.
We just.
So what's the consensus here? Leave it at 6 months or change it to 1 to 2 years?
I don't have an opinion about that other than that
Okay.
Shorter seems like it would happen more, get more attention.
My concern is if we stay with 6 months, having worked in government, that we pass the deadline and then it just drops off the table. Whereas if we leave it for a little longer period of time, then maybe we can say within 1 year, possible extension for 1 more year or something like that. In other words, to keep it on the table, but give them a little more time to pay attention to it. I'm not wording this very well, but that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I mean, what we don't know is whether or not this was ever anything that happened, or.
And if it did not, I want to make sure that it stays in here. And if it did, then we're going to delete it.
Okay,
Is that our recommendation?
yeah,
Okay.
fine.
So Gail, could we perhaps say within 1 year, or we can say within 2 years, or 50% completed within 1 year, 100% completion by 2 years? Does that make sense? No, that doesn't, because an agreement is either a yes or a no.
Exactly, yeah. No, just 1 year is good. 1
Okay.
year
Well,
time to do
yeah,
it.
or we could just say that within 6 months, we've initiated the process.
Right,
To be completed within 1 year?
To be completed within a year, to be completed within 2 years. You know, I don't know, it's just, if you do it, you're gonna have to sit down and do it. To stretch it out for 2 years is just like saying, well, it's not really a priority.
Well,
And it
I like Gail's wording in the process initiation in 6 months, completion of agreement in 1 year.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Down in the weeds again.
Can someone give me a simplified, what constitutes a recharge area?
The aquifer is a recharge area because I think what happens is it collects water that percolates down through the ground and stores
The
it there.
entire Clatsop Plains.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sand dunes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if they have heavy metals shot into a dune. It doesn't matter if they if they clean their equipment. You know, it's still a recharge area regardless of what you do on top of the ground.
Well, and included in the agreement should be some way of monitoring whether or not they've contaminated the aquifer. They maintain that they pick all that shit up, but
No,
you
they
know, we know
Nah.
that they don't, because
So they carefully avoided saying, do they ever remove, you know, how many tons of heavy metals do they use? They make it clear they have to use same bullets that they use to kill people, because you know you need the real life training experience. And no, they don't talk about, gee, every 40 years we're going to go mine those bullets. They don't do.
Well, I don't know if you want to include it in this, but I do think that there's some obligation in the agreement to monitor the contamination of the aquifer that they're recharging.
I think by our agreement, we made sure that we would not interfere with their military decision making.
We got to rethink that one too.
So if you move on to policy I think that this policy I addresses your concerns about groundwater monitoring program, because it's not just Camp Rylea, it's
Right.
a whole area that we're concerned with, and hopefully the whole county and the state and the nation and the world. But anyway, we only have control over what we have control over. So I know that staff is recommending that we delete this, but I think that we might want to rethink that on policy I.
Well, we're back to that same question of whether or not that's something that the county's gonna do, the monitoring.
Well, staff does say that it's not under the county's jurisdiction and is not enforceable by county staff. So that is an area under that we just have no control over.
That's your point in deleting it, right, Gail?
Yes.
That you don't have any, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a meaningless policy with no teeth.
Right, so if we got rid of that, but if we did put some responsibility for monitoring in the agreement with the Oregon Department of Military, because that, I mean, what Robert brings up is a good point. You can put all the water in the world back, but if it contains all the contaminants, it's the beneficial use is a little bit questionable.
So that's an excellent point. Again, under policy H, if you look under number 4, land use in the reserve area should be controlled so that the potential for groundwater contamination from nitrogen and other possible pollutants is kept to a minimum.
Right.
So that seems to address what we're talking about.
Right.
And kept to a minimum, it seems like a pretty good slop variable.
I agree. I'd like to see it perhaps quantified in an area that is consistent with
Yeah, with healthy water.
industry standards.
Yeah.
I don't know what language they use for something like that. Do you, Gail?
I would have to check. I don't know offhand.
Okay.
You know,
But if we're going to keep
the city
that
of
one, then
Washington
it should
sends
include
out annual report where they show how they exceed somebody's standards. So whatever standards they're using is part of the same ones that could be put down here.
So in other words, we agree with number 4, but there needs to be some sort of quantification of it.
Yeah,
Is that
within,
correct?
it's kept within industry standards or something more specific than minimum. And I guess, you know, I mean, DEQ is who sets the standards, so
Yep.
within DEQ's assessment of healthy
Drinking water.
drinking water.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
Moving on. So I am under recommended action 2. I'm a little bit confused about that. Could you expand on that a little bit, Gail?
I do not know what this was referring to.
Okay.
I don't know what they were thinking about. What did I recommend?
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess where I'm confused is the last part, developing the Clatsop Plains aquifer as a water source with other sources of water supply. Other sources of water supply. What does that mean? Rain?
They may have been looking at surface water. It could have been rain. I would suspect surface water though.
Okay. Is anybody else able to make sense of this the recommended action 2? Otherwise, I'd say delete it.
Yeah. Did they? Okay. Okay. Whoops. Gail, Gail, I have
Yeah.
Tessa on the phone. Do we have any question? On my thing about the college students and the testing, that was they lost their professor up there, and that put the kibosh on it. But do we have any other question about the 208 studies or anything like that, where this resource may answer something?
Yeah, so we're looking at this recommended action number 2 right now that's up on the screen. Let me load
Okay.
it. That looks at working with other jurisdictions for a cost-benefit comparison to develop the aquifer as a water source with other sources of water supply.
Yes.
Any information about what the intent was?
Oh, okay. Tessa, I'm reading this. The county, in cooperation with other local jurisdictions, should consider a cost-benefit comparison of developing the Clatsop Plains aquifer as a water source with other sources of water supply. Did you recall when that came up? No. No. Nope. No. No new knowledge. I'm going to say bye-bye to Tessa, but she's accessible when we need her. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tessa.
So my understanding is then that we will follow staff comment recommendation on that.
Okay, so just to be clear, our recommendation, the same policy is in the countywide goals and elements or goals. So we recommended taking out it there. We were recommending to leave it in the community plan in case the county and the other jurisdictions wanted to discuss it. But I would be very happy to also delete it if that's your recommendation.
It doesn't make sense to me, so I don't really know the impact of deleting it.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I would, if I were to take a guess at it, it sounds as if they were looking to create a more permanent and reliable supply of water so that there could continue to be development. That's kind of what I take away from it, but I have nothing to substantiate that.
So the recommendation is to remove it from the countywide comprehensive plan, but keep it in the Clatsop Plains community plan. So that sounds good to me. I'm open to input from anybody else.
The Clatsop Plains aquifer was just the obvious, huge store area, of 78 roundly inches of rainfall over this vast area of beautiful, pure, sand-filtered water. And so it was an obvious, precious resource that also any protection of it stood in the way of development. So there's been a clash since dead people were alive to not protect it, not talk about it. But it's one of these obvious things of, hey, this is the best water in the county. It's a sand filter, and it's recharged with over 6 feet of water every year. Good pure Shanghai flavored rainwater.
So what I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing you say, Robert, is that you would rather see this particular policy remain in the county comprehensive plan. Is that correct?
Or local, where we have more control over it. Yeah, we have more control over the Clatsop Plains, and that's where it is.
Okay.
So it's a huge natural resource that eventually people will want. You know, and I don't care just because of global warming, but it doesn't have to involve growth even. You know, population growth. It's the prettiest, cleanest water in the county.
Yes. So I'm going to jump over a little bit ahead here to the last one, which is issues to be addressed, because I think this falls under that. And
before you do, Donna Bing wants to talk.
Okay.
I am really concerned that we're treating this aquifer as something that's perpetual. I mean, that doesn't have an end to it. It depends greatly on rainwater. And with climate change or climate crisis the way it is, we cannot guarantee that the summer and fall months are going to be rejuvenating or refilling that aquifer. And then you compound that with more development like the one that's there at Cullowhee Lake or near there, whatever that place is called, dunes. You put more people in there and you're sucking that aquifer up. It's not going to be able to keep pace with the demand that development is going to create. So really we should be careful how we open that up or limit or add it to other resources. We should consider that probably more of a finite situation with the people that are already there and try and figure out, I don't know how, if that aquifer can sustain any more development than it already is taking in from both Warrington and Gerhardt.
I totally agree with you, Dawn. And this reflects a change in attitudes from when this plan was originally developed, when the aquifer was considered to be perpetual and, you know, constantly recharging. And that's why the last item on table 3, issues to be addressed, impacts of wildfire climate change on groundwater resources. It is important. This is a finite resource, and as climate change continues, regardless of the cause of it, as it continues, or wildfires, I would like to hear your thoughts on perhaps we need a new policy on protecting the aquifer. I liked what Dawn said about determining the maximum load that it can sustain.
You know, the sand goes down about 128 feet beneath where I'm sitting. You know, and this is just from old ODOT studies, and they're talking about putting a freeway through here. So it's a huge reservoir, but that does not protect it at all from filth and making it undrinkable. You know, period. So yes, it needs to be protected, even if it's a huge, wonderful resource.
So then what we need, Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, we need language, possibly the creation of a new policy stating the importance of protecting the quantity and the quality of the Clatsop Plains aquifer. That's just a beginning statement. Feel free, everybody, to chime in on what you think.
So the proposed draft language is that, Gail, a proposal for a policy? Or is that attached to an existing policy?
No, that would be a new policy that would address how we're going to protect the quantity and quality of the aquifer.
Right. So your proposed draft language in partnership with private landowners, blah, blah, blah.
Doesn't go with this one. It goes with this one. The impacts of wildfire, climate change, and groundwater resources. So that would be the issue that we need to address. How is climate change and wildfire going to affect our groundwater? And so, I mean, this was just kind of an example I put in. You can take it out, you can ignore it, you can laugh at me, but yeah, it was just there to provide some guidance of how to fill out the worksheet.
Yeah, but I think that language is relevant to the protection of the Clatsop Plains aquifer. I mean, I think the language in the proposed draft language is appropriate for the down one.
I can also copy and paste.
Look at you. And maybe saying continue to monitor impacts is not because we haven't really done a comprehensive impact of things that we don't know. You know, we're just kind of shooting in the dark. The metric for anticipating how the aquifer is going to survive the changing climate and the wildfires and the rest of it is not yet available. We haven't figured it out yet. So that if we take the word continue out.
I think that she did.
Oh, she did. There it is, gone.
Yeah.
Too busy listening to myself. Go ahead.
Devin, I see, are you talking to us, or if you are, you're muted? Did you have something? Did you have something to say? Nope. I think he's talking to somebody else. Okay. So on action items on your agenda for October 8th for today, I think that we've completed those. Other than identifying any new issues regarding groundwater resources. And I can't emphasize enough, and chime in here and let me know if you support this. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to protect our aquifers and our water sources. I lived for 20 years in a water scarce location, and we have no idea and no history of how valuable this is, how precious it is, and how vulnerable it is. And so I would urge, looking forward to the future, that if you do think of other things in terms of protecting our water supply, perhaps we could leave some time at the next meeting to bring those up, because I think this is really critical and forward thinking when we start looking at this now.
And are you thinking that we need other policies than the ones we've just been, that are more specific to the concerns that we should all be?
I'm a little concerned. I think this is a great first draft, but I think it's very general.
Right.
So as we think about this for the coming month, that if there are ways to make this stronger, I think the future will thank us for that. And so that's what I'm saying. This is a great first draft. I want to make sure that it's in the comprehensive plan. That's my feeling. And if you can think of other things that will support our intention in terms of policies or additional wording to this proposed policy. That's what I'm saying.
As the aquifer is currently, one can drink it straight from the ground, and it's as good as what Gerhardt pumps and sells its residents. Once it has been fouled from extensive septic, I realize that the solution to pollution is dilution, but I won't want to drink the diluted pollution
Well, there
or
won't
wish
be
it on
that much.
anyone else. But right now, it's a phenomenal sand filter and pure water, and we can say bye-bye, because now we're about to encourage people to go have separate wells and septic systems, and populate to their heart's desire.
So would it be helpful to also create a policy that encourages the county to provide an educational outreach on the value of our water sources? So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in terms of, I think that this proposed policy sort of gets it on the table. But then what can we do? We don't, it's counterproductive to browbeat people. What is helpful, because most people want to do what is right and good for their children, their grandchildren, so forth. So usually by educating people, I mean, look at the difference that I've got two examples. One is smoking and the other is recycling. Growing up at my age, neither one of those was in the public consciousness at all. And through education, we've changed public's perceptions and actually behavior. And so I think that that might be an important part to put into the comprehensive plan. We see it in other places that, I don't want to put this in the policy, but funding permitting, that we change this attitude through education to help people recognize the value of what they're sitting on or standing on. Does that make sense?
So Mary, I put together a draft of what you were talking about. So let me know if this captures it. It says the county shall establish an education and outreach program to raise awareness of the value of groundwater resources and the role of the Clatsop Plains aquifer in water regeneration, supply, and quality.
I like it. I think that the one thing that I would, and this may not be the right words, but also the fragility of it, how fragile it is. And as Robert said, once polluted, you can't get it back. So I don't know quite how to word that, but awareness is good, but they also need wonderful value and fragility of groundwater resources. Because we have so much rain, everybody thinks that drinking water is not a problem here. And it quite possibly could be.
The education should include not just awareness, but also some preservation, some methods of preservation, because just telling people that we're going to run out of water without telling, without assisting people in how to just, like recycling or any other environmental protection.
In other words, the value of it, well, you just said that.
Yeah, but the just recognizing the value, but some strategies for.
So action items that people can do.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly. Thank.
It's not imaginable to 99+% of the population here.
Right.
But I recall opening the tap and having mud flow out,
Right.
from the Warrenton City water tap.
Right.
Late August, open the tap, mud flows.
Yeah. That's happening now in our Ashland home. Sand is coming out of our of our taps. So yes, it seems unthinkable, but there it is. It happens.
Well, we're only about a generation away, because growing up in the neighborhood where I grew up here in Seaside, every summer, our neighbors, they were sucking dirt out of their well.
Yeah.
And boy, you learn about the value of an aquifer when you don't have any water.
Yeah.
And we want to try to prevent getting to that place on a community-wide basis. These were individuals, but we certainly don't want to be having mud come out of our city faucets. Yeah. And so, Gail, that's kind of the focus of where we're going with this. Don't know if we've got exactly the right wording. I kind of trust you on that, but I think you've done a great job. Any other comments on this? We're getting close on time here.
I have, once we've covered all we're supposed to do, I still want to throw in the word manifest, or two words, manifest destiny, which is very irritating when it gets drawn into our planning process. I don't mean from us, I mean from elsewhere. And yet it's a very hot topic through the indigenous communities clear up into British Columbia, that there is a white supremacist mentality that goes back, that all this land that was stolen, we have a right to. And and it's a strong mentality, and it's this stuff that irritates people when it disrupts our planning process. But we've done such a good day. I don't want us to eliminate that there are underpinning attitudes that are not a popular topic in Clatsop County, but they are across the indigenous communities clear into Canada, period.
I hear what you're saying, Robert. Thank you very much. Without getting too contentious, I think that hopefully we've worked towards moving the needle with an education and outreach program.
That term 1619 project is an example of that, which is inflammatory on a national political level, but it's all part of the same thing of that there is more to it than white privilege that we've enjoyed.
Amen.
So is there anything else that we need to discuss?
Yes.
Okay, I'm open. We're open to other comments.
I was hoping that we could go back to goal 5, and I went through the what I think was Ms. Decker wrote, and there were some corrections that needed to be done. I was wondering if it would be better if I just went ahead and sent all these concerns and corrections to Gail.
Yeah, is this on the meeting summary?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'll go ahead and send those, or if you want to, we can go through them quickly right now, unless there's a lot of them. I took things verbatim from the video. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to send me your comments, I'll go through and then we'll do a revised set next
Yeah,
month.
I go through them, page 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. Yeah, if
And
you'll
they all involve the Chinook Indian Nation and the 5 confederated tribes that belong to the Chinook Indian Nation. Basically, needed some clarification on wording.
Okay.
The one that I want to make sure that we understand is that when we were talking about these cultural sites and what the state has 90 or 91 of them sequestered, that specificity of specific locations when referencing the Chinook, it's not exclusive to the Chinook culture. Just I want to understand that the Clatsop lands now would have many specific locations identifying and venerating and honoring Euro-American involvement in the resettlement of Clatsop land. So rather than, I would err on detail than omission for sake of history and saving a culture. And then there was a request for me to write or have a draft pertaining to a statement that was listed on page 60 of the what was that called? Anyway, a rewrite of the following. The information that was put on here, 20 years ago, stating the Northwest Coastal Indians have lived in this area since at least the 15th century. Available research indicates that the Indians typically avoided settling the forested areas because of the difficulty of travel and relative lack of food resources. Village sites were developed mainly along rivers and bays or other sites that afforded easy access to fresh and salt water. Well, I read that gave that information to the Chinook Council and the Chinook Culture Committee, and they took great exception to it. I said that I told them that information was not written by a Chinook person or anyone from the 5 tribes of the Chinook Nation, and that I requested some input from them to make some changes. And I have a draft of a corrected or a little bit more detailed and correct information to replace that statement that was written 20 plus years ago regarding the Chinook. And Gail, do you want me to go ahead and send that to you, or do you want me to read that for the record?
Can we do both?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this is approved by the Chinook Council and the Chinook Culture Committee. As defined by historians and the Indian Courts of Claims, docket 234, the Clatsop Chinook people here in this area have been written about since at least the 15th century and have resided here for tens of thousands of years. Since Clatsop Chinook peoples traveled by canoe, they constructed village sites along rivers, estuaries, and bays or other sites that gave easy access to fresh and salt water. Forests were a vital resource to Clatsop Chinook. They gathered a variety of items regularly from the forested lands directly under the canopies of giant trees, of their large and bountiful territory. Forest products include lumber bark and roots required to complete construction of canoes and produce clothing, rope, nets, storage containers, and cooking utensils, to name just a few items. End.
Thank you. Yes, and definitely if you'll send that along to me as well, and I'll make sure it gets in the minutes as well.
Well, it was to replace that
Right.
misstated paragraph
Right.
that was in the goal 5.
You hear Art?
Screen all the way down to 6. I think it was page 60. It said it was almost near the bottom.
Yep. No, and thank
Okay,
you.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
do that.
So
Thank you.
Dawn, I want to
Go
say
ahead.
thank you for taking that to the Chinook Nation and bringing that back. I think that is a valuable and much needed change to the document. And I want to thank you for your work, your time and effort, and to all those who contributed to that. I feel really proud of that. So, and I hope you feel proud also.
I myself personally am very, very proud to be part of this committee because it is a far-reaching and far-thinking group of people that really want to look for a present time and a better future. So I mean it from the hearts of our Chinook Culture Committee that we are indebted for having a place at this table. I have only one other request. We were supposed to, I don't know who was supposed to contact me, but I haven't received that list from the state or the county of those sequestered historical sites, somewhere between, well, the county had 58 and the state produced 91 or 90 sites. And I was wondering if there was any progress on getting that sent to me so that I can make sure that it's in the hands of the Culture Committee, and then they will forward that onto the council.
Dawn, this is Julia, and I copied you, and I got a conversation started, I thought, between you and the State Historic Preservation Office. They have whatever list they have, and so I was thinking the nation should probably discuss it directly with them. The county doesn't really have any business having that list. I have not located the original list that is mentioned in there of the 50 some sites. And I'm concerned that maybe we were not supposed to have it because it is confidential and we shouldn't. I mean, it's not in the public record for the public domain, and everything in this office is public. So in order to protect the site, it may be that we were taken out of the loop. And I mean, I know that we don't have it in various documents in the back that we use as our resource library. So that was why I set up that dialogue between you and the folks at the State Historic Preservation Office so that you guys could have the conversation about how to handle that list, whatever it may be.
Okay, do you have the contact person's name and phone number so I can verify?
It was just the email address that I copied you on. I can resend it to you.
Please do. I don't know if I still got it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll send it to you over again.
Okay, thank you very much, Gail.
Mary,
Yes.
I have a request to Gail that before the countywide meeting, that she might send me her notes about what we did at this meeting, so that as liaison, I can succinctly describe what we did without straying afield. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Gail. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Our next meeting, it looks like, is November 12th, regular time, 2 to 4. And thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful consideration of this document that we're going over. I really like the direction that we're going. We are increasingly forward thinking for what is going to make this an even better place to live. So thank you, everybody. I will, if I don't see you before, I will see you next in November. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.